Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we're gonna be reviewing the album Undertake by the band Aquaserge. Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog. Yeah, I know, I'm sorry for being late on my uploads. School and everything has just been too much recently, so yeah, today we're gonna have a double upload, and then to compensate, we're gonna have yet another double upload tomorrow, so, just stay tuned for that. But for now, here's some of my favorite bits from this album. So I must say that I am somewhat excited and relieved for today's band and album, of course, but firstly the band behind it. Today we're taking a look at Undertake by the band Aquaserge, and they happen to be the second to last band which I have no familiarity with at all on the list this year. Now, the band Aquaserge formed back in the year of 2005 after 3 of its members broke from the pop rock oriented French group called Hyperclean. And the band itself consisted at first of a trio, the first one being Benjamin Gilbert on the guitars, the second one being Julian Gusk on the keyboards, and the last one being Julian Barbagallo on the drums. And instead of the usual pop rock style that they used to play so far, this band was gonna sport a more jazz, even psychedelic and everything avant-garde oriented type of music. Okay, now this is where things started getting a bit more confusing, so stay with me. In 2005, the band created their debut album called which basically means one in French, and that album only received a digital release, and for some reason it wasn't really ever considered to be the first full studio debut album by the band. And in that same year, they even followed up with an EP called De Tahiti Coco, which basically means To Tahiti Coco. Now, this one, of course, it was an EP, it was not really an album, still not considered as the band's debut for some reason, but only then in 2009, when the band released Un Deux, that would be considered as their debut album, sort of being their first, maybe second, maybe none of their first albums. I know it's pretty confusing. But when Aquaserge did release their debut album in 2009, there were also rumors going around that these guys had already had another album in the works, if not even ready. And well, in 2010 these rumors would come to be quite truthful, because the band released their third, or technically second, studio album called C'est Très Cher Serge. And by this point the band had actually grown by one member, now consisting of a bassist and a vocalist called Audrey Genestet. And then afterwards we jump a bit further in time to the band's fourth or maybe fifth studio album, released in 2014, called A l'amitié, which translates from French to mean to friendship. Now, let me emphasize this. So far, I've been talking about Aquaserge as if there's some sort of a semi-well-known band, maybe in France, something like that, but the truth is, these guys, they're really obscure, okay? The pieces of information that I have about them was me scouring around the interwebs looking for information, hoping that it would be correct and truthful, but as a matter of fact, I really am going off words by people who aren't really authorized to talk about this, probably. And well, this is a very interesting case, because whenever I see a band that started off their career quite a while ago, yes, they were forming back in 2005 and they're still releasing albums today, yet they're not really that successful, I try and ask myself the question of, Why? Why is that? And well, from what I've read, I think that the first major factor for why these guys aren't really consistently loved is their eclecticism. Now yes, eclecticism is a great thing. A band that knows how to branch out in different directions is amazing, but the matter of fact is, if every other album that you put out is something completely different from the last, people are not gonna continuously love your works. And from what I've read, I take it that their debut album is more like the Canterbury style, but then it transitions onwards to the second album being a lot more Zool, and then going into the third it has much more to do with classical chamber music, so as you can tell, very eclectic in many directions. And well, the second reason I find their music, and specifically today's album A l'Amitié, to be quite the unsuccessful piece of music that it is, not bad but just unsuccessful, is because it's very niche. Yes, A l'Amitié is an album that I would describe as being verging on freeform jazz, psychedelia, avant-garde, all with a distinct underground scent to it, and honestly, it is just very specific. Is it in fact very specific? Yes. Is it good? Maybe. Is it for everyone? Absolutely not. Now personally, I do believe that this album is quite neat, and if there's one thing that it showcases is a really high musicianship skills. Yes, the title track that opens this album up is what I would call very much indie sounding like. It features the band going upwards in a very gradual build. You don't really know what they're going for, but it just kind of sounds good for the entire ride, and I liked it quite a bit. There's another song on this album called For Bob, which is not my favorite from the album, but I do like its very unique sense of syncopation used all throughout it. And we also get a track like Sillage 1 and 2, which is not that great, but then it all pays off in Sillage 3, which I personally really enjoyed from this album. I feel like it's a sort of mix from jazz, psychedelic, and even pop to some degree, which feels to me very much intense and unlike anything I really know. But as it stands, all in all, A l'Amitié is a bit of a forgettable listen. It's not a bad one, surely, but it's just not something that I see myself coming back to anytime soon. But again, I'm kind of conflicted over this because it is genuinely not a bad album. But personally, if I were to ever get a physical copy of this one, it would mostly to have it around, maybe to play it to break the norms of what I usually listen to, but more importantly to just vibe on its unique and so much lovely cover that it has. And with that, let's talk about this album's cover. So in other news, I just really like this album's cover. Now, if you know me, I have a big soft spot for everything that's cover related that has a white background to it. I don't know what it is, but it's just the thing, I guess. I love First Utterance by Comus, the white background in the back of course, and I love Fido's Doomsday Afternoon as well. Just great album covers, and for some reason I like it all more for the white background. And on the cover we see right now, we have the sketch, the architectural sketch of a building. Looks kind of old in some degree, I would guess around the 17th, maybe not 17th, but 18th or 19th century. And of course it has the title of the album engraved on it, being A l'Amitié, which to remind you means to friendship. And well, at first I was like, yeah, they probably just made this drawing because of the name of the album, but then I was like, but maybe this is a real building. So I decided to dig a bit further, and at some point I was like, I don't really know what to look for here, so I just searched the name A l'Amitié and building, and it didn't really give anything, but then I spotted something kind of familiar. So I started digging this rabbit hole, and apparently, yes, this is a real building located somewhere in central Paris. Apparently, this place is a temple of friendship, as of course you can infer from the name of it. Now, not a lot is known about the original building itself, which actually still stands today, but it is prohibited to go inside of it, and seeing as it is like in the middle of a suburban area sort of place, you can't really see it well. I really don't know how to describe it to you, but there's a huge amount of information about it in this one very obscure website that is made entirely in HTML, so if you want to check that out, you can go ahead and check it out. But one of the cooler things that I found on their website is actually sketches of the build itself, maybe from the time that it was built, estimated to be around 1810 to 1820. And well, one of these sketches might have been the influence, if not the direct inspiration for this album's cover. But yeah, I'm sorry, I just went into this rabbit hole for a moment because I thought it was really cool, and I was just amazed to see that someone created this huge website with so many sources of information about this one tiny building in the middle of Paris that doesn't really have a lot to do with anything, and I think it's a nice idea that they took it as the motif for this entire album and of course its album's cover. But yeah, all in all, this is a pretty cool album, but not one to definitely remember, so I'd give it a rating I think of a low 7 out of 10. But that's about it guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video and stay tuned for tomorrow. Who am I kidding? I know it's coming out today, we have a double upload, and stay tuned for today's episode being The Incident by Porcupine Tree. I of course want to thank my lovely supporters over on Patreon, so thank you so much to Clay Wan, Rest of Kings and Lindsay Haycox, you guys are just the best. And if any of you want to support me over on Patreon, you can find the link down in the description or in my about page. But that's about it guys, have a wonderful day and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye guys.